Friends, welcome to Dawn Agreement. This will be the Book of Zintrana, Chapter 1. Zintrana, you find yourself waiting outside of a theater where you have been instructed to wait for another agent of the Dawn Agreement to induct you. The area here is somewhat abandoned of late. You can see that the theater district is not exactly bustling with either employee nor attendant consumer. But Stormwall is quite a large town, some say one of the largest castle cities in the world, at least as far as Acas goes. And the man approaching you right now definitely seems like he lives here. He's wearing a large puffy hat that ends in like a palm thingy, a cape of green and gold, and an outfit that looks like he walked right out of a Shakespearean drama, perhaps even dressed as Shakespeare himself. He holds out a hand towards you and flicks you a coin.
I'll catch the coin if I can.
You can catch that coin. On one side is your face. On the other side is the rising sun coming over a horizon.
I take it you were looking for me.
This individual extends the cape out to the side and then bows and says, "I'm at your service. Please. You could call me Jives, James Jives. I am an agent of the Dawn Agreement. I am here to induct you. While other agents are being tasked around the world, you, of course, will be residing in Stormwall, our headquarters, and it was not necessary to send you a letter. I think you will find that Traveler's Coin, however, will allow you to communicate with other agents as you wish."
Right. I'll examine the coin back in front, and then pocket it or put it somewhere safe.
Come, I will take you to Castle Hesper. I believe that is where you have your agreed upon task that you will be undertaking.
Lead on.
All right. So we get the zoom out and we see the first view of Stormwall. This is a city that is both built along the ocean coast and somewhat into a series of, if not a mountain, then tiered hills. It almost seems like that kind of Peruvian, Argentinian tiered, you know what I'm talking about, agriculturally?
Yep.
And with that comes 100 or more castles, which defend what are essentially small mini towns within the greater expanse of Stormwall. This is perhaps how Stormwall came to be, was just a number of castles in close range that grew closer and closer as more castles were built. You seem to be headed to the northeast side of Stormwall, where indeed this part has been readily abandoned as of late. These castles have laid dormant for some time, but you are approaching a castle from which flies the flag of House Hesper, of a noble house that has stood dead for many years, decades in fact. And as you approach, you can see that the walls are manned by the sick and injured. Where once this castle might have needed a guard of over 100, there are but a dozen wounded with bandages around missing limbs, either standing or sitting, pushing themselves in chairs, or using, oh my gosh, I literally can't think of the word for a crutch. Holy cow.
Crutches.
Great, that's a good word to bomb on right there. So as you're approaching, it is a constant verbal vomit from James Jives as he is telling you about historic Stormwall and everything he knows about the Hespers. And while he may not have known any of them, he knows the son of a cousin of the Hesper family that he once met and had a drinking contest with. And that truly an admirable man who can hold quite a bit of alcohol, but perhaps not enough to defeat James Jives.
Is the Hesper family well known?
As far as any dead noble house could be well known, sure. I mean, it does have a castle in Stormwall, so it's not like they can ever really be forgotten. But, you know, it's not something that anyone would go out of their way to learn more about.
And why are they a dead family? They just died out over time, or they were wiped out by a rival?
Well, let me ask you a question. Are you asking me, or are you asking James, Jives?
Well, if I know, then I know. If I don't, then
make
I'll
a history check.
Okay.
That is a great one to start out with.
When you have a second, could you do me a favor? Could you create a journal and give me access to it so I can make my notes in Foundry? Yeah, just put like, you know, Zintrana's journal or James's journal, and just make sure it's assigned to me as a no-no, and I can then make notes in it.
Absolutely. Create an entry. New journal entry. James's diary.
Not a bad roll to start the campaign with, an 18.
I see a 15 on the dice head. Yeah, so that's pretty good. How about show to players? And then configure permissions, James as owner. How about that?
Fantastic. Thank you.
With an 18. House Hesper had a run of bad luck that ended to them. They were quite an extended family, although 40 years ago, they ran into a bit of an elemental incursion in the area, and several of their children ended up plane touched as infernals. And the common word nowadays is tiefling, which is somewhat more acceptable than the term infernal. But those children then, feeling great shame about their family, split up across the region of Acas to pursue their own fortune and left the house with no heirs. And it died a quiet death with the Lord and Lady when they slipped in the middle of the night in old age.
Okay.
James stops you outside of Castle Hesper and says, "It is quite a thing to agree to help others. And ladies Zintrana, I hope you the best in your journey."
Please. I feel like I'm in trouble. It's just Zin to everybody else.
Zin. Very well. Yes. Should you ever want to pursue a career change, you should know that in the next few days, we are opening a college fair. If you've ever thought of the entertainment business as the only business for you, you can find me there. I'm sure we can put your skills to use. And with that, I bid you adieu. And he flourishes his cape as he turns to go away.
Bye. Thank you.
As you say that, there's a puff of green smoke, and he disappears walking into it.
Okay. So I look around. Is there anybody else here to meet me, or is it just sort of like get to work?
There's the castle gate, and there are people there who will meet with you. They did just watch this whole exchange.
Okay, no worries. I will approach the castle gate then.
There's a man standing there with a spear and shield of a Oracasian soldier, and he says, "Well then, I suppose that you are Lady Zintrana?"
Just Zin. That's fine. I'm here to help with the injured.
Yes, we know that you were coming. I'm Farless, Sergeant Farless. I've been assigned to be your bodyguard, just in case anyone tries anything with you.
Oh, do I need a bodyguard? Is it not just...
There are curses and other foul things that lie upon the residents of this misbegotten place, Lady Zintrana, and if should anything happen to you, I would be punished heavily. So if you wouldn't mind just allowing me to stick close to you. Plus, it's been an excellent job. I used to work for this total nonce of a lieutenant all through the war. He's in logistics and entertainment. Oh, the best job I ever had.
Okay, then. Where do I put my things? Where do we get started? What's the next...
Of course, yeah. If you'll follow me, we've set aside a tent for you.
Right.
So he leads you from the inner part of the castle. Sorry, the outer part of the castle to the inner part. And inside, where once there might have been buildings and fields, it is just white tents in every direction, and something like a open soldiers barracks lot where those who are not too injured to get up and walk around are still organizing themselves into formation, attending to all of their daily duties. There are, hundreds of soldiers here who are all in some state of injury. Many who have lost limbs, others whose afflictions seem to be more based in the mind. And there is a lack of purpose at this camp that is immediately readily apparent. There we go. While you're here and walking with Sergeant Farless, there's nothing for many of these people to do. They just sit on stairs or any available object that they can find and just stare at everybody else. Occasionally they get up and race each other or go through basic formation drills, but they are as quarantined into this castle as a person can be.
Sergeant, when these men and women are back to full health, what's next for them? Where are they going after this?
I'm not rightly sure, honestly. A couple have been let loose once they've been somewhat more healed, but a lot of the soldiers of the most recent conflict of the Drought War and the Jubilix conflict, I don't know that they're ever gonna. I mean, one doesn't just regrow limbs, Someone has to take care of them, and it seems like Castle Hesper is where that's ended up being.
So they're all injured in these conflicts?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Drought War lasted, 5 years now, and the Jubilixine conflict? I mean, technically they're the same war, although you wouldn't know it from the look of the injuries. How much do you know about modern warfare?
Let's just see if I don't know a lot and fill me in.
So you've arrived at your tent, and he basically co-ops a bench. All of your equipment in here is made out of hewn wood, so none of it is fancy, and all of it is cheap, but it is all functional. And he's sitting on a bench that's little more than 2 stumps and half of a log. Well,
wait a second. I think if you've ever seen somebody setting up a trade show booth or at a convention, so this is what Zin is doing, like setting up this tent, putting out her things on the table in a particular order, in a particular configuration, putting up a banner with a symbol of the flame and another banner that's got let's assume the Red Cross is still the universal sign of healing.
Sure.
Setting up to receive. And I guess because I haven't really described Zintrana yet.
Oh, please do. I mean, people can see the little chibi Zintrana in the corner, but go ahead.
So Zin is a half-elf with a, I guess you call it a honey complexion and dark brown hair. She's got her hair in an updo, like a braid crown, with still with the wisps that sort of stick out though from travel. Wearing scale armor that doesn't look like it's had much trouble in the past, so probably not that used to conflict. Her armor has where she's got pauldrons or vambraces, they show the sunburst symbol, which is what I co-opted as a symbol for the flame. And she has a sort of, I guess, a very naive demeanor potentially. So she's probably only late teens, early 20s, relatively fresh face to all of this. She does also, probably not while she's traveling, but she will occasionally use makeup to just do patterns on her face. It's something that she heard elves sometimes do, and so it makes her feel a bit more elfish, despite not really, it's cultural theft.
Appreciation. You're trying to discover the ways of your people. You don't know. Appreciation. You're trying to discover the ways of your people.
Yeah. Now, she saw a picture in a book once and thought that.
You just need a better teacher, I think.
Yeah.
So Sergeant Farless says, "Well, look, I could spend several weeks teaching you modern military tactics, but I'm just gonna give you the quick several sentence primer that should serve well enough for you. So here's the deal. You are, I would suspect, a practitioner given your equipment. Would you say that's correct? Practitioner of magic.
Divine magic, yes.
Yes. Well, you know, when someone's trying to kill you, you don't really care whether the magic is divine or arcane, so we just call it magic. Well, you can't just line up two big armies to fight each other right at suicide. One fireball, lightning bolt, the whole line's gone. And you know, it's not like there's dozens of people available to throw those out, but you don't want to lose 100 men to one wizard slinging fireballs, if you understand what I'm saying. So, the way the army tactics have evolved throughout the Drought War, at the very least what I saw was the most modern, was small teams of soldiers acting together based around a practitioner who would act as their sergeant, who was specialized in using counterspell. And those teams would go out and fight the Caucasian teams and try to bait them out into a unfavorable position, at which point a series of soldiers who were, how can I put this mildly, assassination teams, kill teams really, meant specifically to hunt practitioners, would attempt to strike at the other side's team. Should that be successful, a portion of the enemy line would be open and we would surge soldiers down there. I think that looking around here, you are already of the knowledge that a lot of soldiers would get hurt during those pushes, and we didn't make much progress because it took 5 years. So, I mean, death is very rare on the battlefield, given that there are so many practitioners. Even if you're not a powerful practitioner, even the most basic healing magic can bring someone back from the verge of death. I mean, I don't need to explain that to you, a practitioner of divine magic, of course, I would think. Actual death on the battlefield is, you know, mostly reserved for people whose bodies could not be readily recovered. But horrifying and gruesome injury is somewhat more likely.
Okay.
So this is going to kill me. Oh, God.
I guess first question really is everybody here at least stable? There's nobody here is like about to die. Everyone is just has long-term injuries.
Yeah, exactly. Well, with the exception of those who have been cursed or hexed or otherwise been demonic magics have been placed upon them. I think one guy is now like half a wolf.
Okay, that's...
and I hope you don't have any problems treating people who aren't Oracasian here, because we have some Caucasians and, of course, several members of the Elven contingent who came out of, you know, the Western Sea.
Oh no, my magic is for whoever who needs it.
And, if you don't mind my asking, Lady Zintrana, what exactly does your magic do? Because I have a mate who's missing an arm, and I don't suppose you're powerful enough to call upon the prayers of God to, you know, regain it.
Look, I'm still relatively a neophyte. That sort of magic is beyond me right now. For me, right now, it's really just about making sure that, you know, people are well enough to continue on life. I can restore some elements, like I can't remove curses or those sort of afflictions, but long-term diseases, for example, or anything that might cause debilitating injuries, other than obviously limb loss. I can't regrow limbs yet. You know, all things come in time. It depends how long I'm here for, I suppose.
Okay.
So tell your friend, just wait a little longer.
You're telling me that he should have faith?
I can't tell anybody to have faith. That's their choice.
All right. Which particular deity should he have faith in?
That's up to him. I personally follow the flame.
Okay.
I don't reserve my healing for fellow followers, though. Whoever needs it gets my help.
Of course.
I suppose I should ask the question then: are any of the people here needing assistance enemy combatants?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that anyone's an enemy combatant anymore.
Oh, good then. Okay, no problem.
Like I said, there are some Caucasians here that, I wouldn't call them prisoners, but they don't have easy access back to the Holy Kingdom, so, they're kind of here for the long haul. Mostly because they can't walk on their own, but,
All right. Well, I guess I have everything I need set up here. I think that initially we'll probably just need to get an idea of who has what ailments, because when it comes to, I can either heal people magically or with my own healer skills, but I am limited in how much magic I can use in a given day, which means that we should probably do some sort of triage.
Sure. I mean, you could talk to the people running the camp and see if you can figure out, what you're talking about is way above my pay grade. I'm just a sergeant.
Okay. So where do I go to find the people running the camp?
Well, that depends on who you want to talk to first, I suppose. I mean, there's my boss, Lieutenant Acas, who technically, runs the castle right now, Castle Esper. There is the lead practitioner, Mr. 40 Swift, and, the Stormwall has provided a healer of non-practitioner qualities, you understand, by the name of Miss Angle.
Okay. Well, take me to your leader. Start there.
Okay. So, he hefts his spear over his shoulder after he exits your tent and gestures for you to follow him. Lieutenant Acas is he's short, wearing a Oricasian military uniform, but with the markings that indicate that he is also a noble of some standing. Probably.
Is there a real world historical equivalent you could relate the Oricasian uniform to? Or?
Oh, we're talking Napoleonic.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's shoulder tassels made of gold and everything.
Yep.
Double button down in the front, trousers, boots. Lieutenant Acas looks like a man who has been punched in the face many times before. And in fact, now appears to also have a broken nose. Perhaps quite recently, maybe earlier in the day. Sword at his side is slightly curved in its sheath and does not appear to be Oricasian in nature. Perhaps it comes from somewhere in the south, the Tabax, perhaps. Other than that, he looks annoyed when he sees you and goes, "So, you're the agent of the Dawn Agreement? Zintrana, is it?"
Just Sin.
Very well,
yes.
Just Sin.
I just thought before I get started that as you're in charge here, I should introduce myself and see. Would you like me to set that nose for you, maybe?
Fine.
Okay.
No,
well,
he very obviously looked away from you and then looked back at you. It took him some time to come to the conclusion that you should do this.
Okay, no worries. I'm not looking to use any magic. I'm just looking to,
Please make a medicine check.
No worries.
Let's see those dice on the table. How good are you at actual practical applications of healing?
Let's find out. Not great today.
10 is exactly what you needed, so
okay.
It's a good thing you're so good, because that was a terrible roll.
Yep.
All right. You snap his nose back into place and he's, thank you, Sin. I truly appreciate what you've done for me.
Isn't it easy to breathe now?
Let's say yes and be done with this discussion.
Right.
I understand that this Dawn Agreement has assigned you here, and they must have the political capital to make it stick. But I want you to know that you have absolutely no place in my command. I have assigned you someone for your personal defense just to ensure that you don't get into any trouble. I'm sorry. What I meant was so that no trouble finds you.
Oh, I'm not looking to make trouble. I'm just here to help.
Yes. Excellent.
Okay, so that was very lovely to meet you.
Yes.
I'll be at my tent if you need anything. Look after that nose. And
yes. Zin.
Yes.
Try not to convert anyone who doesn't want to be converted here.
No, that's not my style. That's
good.
That's
excellent news to hear. I don't need you interfering with military operations.
I'm not here to do that, Lieutenant.
You can go.
Thank you. So as we leave, I will turn to Fireless. Just out of curiosity, what is the dominant religion here?
So Fireless is just like, I mean, actually, your religion, you know, the Flame is kind of the dominant religion in the Orcosian Empire insofar as those who seek a primary god instead of like a pantheonic thing. I myself am a follower of the god of rebellion, you know. I just like music.
Okay.
You know, you won't see me trying to take over the government or anything, but yeah. The lieutenant means well, but you know, he doesn't like practitioners.
Oh, okay. Do you play?
Oh, true, I play music. You should see me jam down on the pan flute. Ah, I know all the camp songs.
Okay, well, at some point when we're not working, I'd like to hear that.
I really appreciate that. You've shown such great interest in me. Well, we'll make our way over to, I guess, Miss Angle. Can I ask, what can we know about you, perhaps? What can you tell me of your background?
Well, I grew up on a farm, not really from the city, and I guess most of what I learned as a child I got from my mother's books, and it's hard to say what really brought me to faith in the first place. I think that it was just when I decided to leave the farm and actually head to civilization that the church was really the first place to take me in, and I probably felt just a kinship with the nature of the Flame and helping others. And maybe it's because of my elven heritage that the magic sort of came naturally. But yeah, I've been trying to do what I can since to help, and it's only been recently that the Dawn Agreement has recruited me, and I don't know. I have these ideals of heroism and adventure that I guess are for a future time. Right now, I can do more good here than I can running around the wilderness on my own. If that makes any sense.
I ain't even heard of the Dawn Agreement until several months ago.
That's the same here. There you go.
Well, I mean, you know, I wasn't there when it happened, but I was there when the army came marching through, you know, our own front lines. Hell of a thing to see, you know. Lizard folk, tabaxi, elves marching behind an army of men. A Caucasian general leading an Orcosian army. Was bizarre, but, you know, I guess you gotta do whatever you gotta do to defeat a demon.
I mean, I think it just proves that everybody can work together when pushed to do so. We can always put aside our differences.
All right, I want you to understand that he's nodding at you, but he looks really sad and he says, I'm glad someone believes that.
Because he doesn't.
Because he doesn't. Go ahead and take inspiration.
Okay.
You arrive at a series of tents which are perhaps the most precise. I'm talking hospital corners, perfectly laid out spacing, extreme attention to detail as far as the rules. The well is exactly as far away from the latrines as it should be. Everyone here is wearing their uniform exactly as it should, coming from the lead healer's tent, where a woman who's got her hair tied up into a bun on the back of her head. She looks like she's somewhere in her late 30s, wearing an apron over top of the healer's outfit, covered in blood, as someone on her table is shaking. And she just goes, "Well, that's it again. Looks like this one, the curse isn't broken yet. Someone, I don't know. Jenkins, order a werewolf teeth, I guess. I don't really know how this works. Goddamn Caucasians. You! Why are you just standing around in front of my tent?"
I'm Zin. I'm the cleric of the flame. That I just come to say hello and to help if I can. Do you need any help? You look like you're very busy.
Yeah, we could use help. What can you actually do?
Well, I know healing, both divine and conventional.
Well, look, I don't want to sound too standoff, but come in here and tell me what you see. Because I don't know you, and I need to know how good you are.
Okay.
So she indicates you to stand at the table. There is a man lying on the table. His arm looks like a wolf paw, and his whole arm is covered in fur. He seems to be shaking and vomiting blood. He's been strapped to the table, but other than that, the rest of his body is somewhat human. No one seems alarmed by the fact that he's spitting blood or, shaking.
Okay, well, this doesn't look like any conventional injury I've heard of. You mentioned a curse. That seems like the most likely cause. What about the other injuries? What's causing him to vomit blood? Where the blood coming? Where it's coming from? Is it from his stomach? Is it?
She just says, "You tell me."
All right. I'll determine what I can.
With a medicine check?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's probably that or Arcana if it's something like a curse. But
it's
not
medicine
really.
for this. It's medicine.
Okay. All right. Let's give this a go. 17, that's all right.
It's not strictly speaking a curse. This condition was caused by a curse, certainly, but it's not like one still lays upon him. The problem is that the curse has mutated his body, and the mutation has stopped, right? But one of his lungs is partially transformed, and part of his heart is partially transformed into a wolf heart. So his body is rejecting these additional organs in both directions, right? The human part of him is trying to get rid of the wolf part. The wolf part of him is trying to get rid of the human part. So his whole body is basically having what you would probably assume is some imbalance of the humors, but what we would know of as massive inflammation and autoimmune response.
Organ rejection. So is he? So if a curse, remove curse was done, it wouldn't make any difference for him then, because this
Correct.
is now the
right. The curse is already struck.
Okay. So it would seem then that whatever curse has happened has resolved itself, and so it couldn't simply be removed. The only other thing I could think of to stabilize his condition would be more arcane magic to effectively polymorph him into a more stable form. I mean, unfortunately, it looks like this is his form right now. And I'm taking her aside. My bedside manner's going to take her aside to have this conversation rather than right in front of him. Do we know how he received this affliction?
Make a persuasion check at this point.
Okay.
I am curious as to how much she believes your new story.
So I got a question for you.
Yes.
I'm not that familiar with inspiration in 5th ed. Is it, you use inspiration to get advantage on a roll? Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So I'm going to use it now because I want to impress this person.
That's a good call.
Yeah.
It was a good call. Those were truly stinky dice. Your rolls have been
up and down. That's it. It's my highest skill rolling with advantage, and the best I can muster was a 10 after the modifier.
Wow. You might want to like wash those dice or commit some sort of virtual ritual or something. All right, so she just goes, I don't know what you're talking about. He's obviously cursed.
All right, well, I guess back to my question. Do we know how this happened, when this happened, where he was when it
happened during the Drought War, about 2 years ago. He's been here ever since then. He was actually one of the first to be received at Castle Hespar during the quarantining.
And more men have this affliction? It's not just this one?
Just him. Just him. Oh, there are other curses that abound this camp, but this one is unique to this particular individual.
Okay, this sort of metamorphosis is...
Yeah. Kind of disappointed in your level of skill, and was really hoping for more when I heard that the mythological Dawn Agreement, the greatest magical organization of world peace, was sending one of its best agents. She looks at you with a look of extreme disappointment that you couldn't see what she can clearly see. This is a curse.
I've only been here an hour.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if there's something...
why don't you stick with the clerics? Let's leave the healers to do our business, you know, the actual healing.
All right, well, you know where to find me if I can be of any assistance, even just an extra pair of hands.
Sure.
I seem like I aproned up for this, so I'll take that off.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Wow, this is just go back to Phyllis again. I get the impression here that no one's really happy for any change.
Phyllis is just like, I'm sorry, Lady Zintrana. I don't think anyone here is happy at all.
It's like being back home again. It's just Zin.
Okay, Zin. I mean, this seems disrespectful, but sure.
Well, I'll tell you what. Phyllis is your surname?
I just have one name. It's Sergeant Phyllis.
Okay, well, there we go. So now we're both on a first name basis.
That's the most noble thing I've heard you say so far.
Right. I suppose I should also meet my fellow practitioner, Foro.
Yeah, Foro Swift. All right, so Foro Swift is set up in a large tent that has, it's almost like a revival tent. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, I actually don't know if they do this in other countries, but in America, you know, people will gather in the middle of a rural area with like a large white tent to hear a
marquee sort of thing.
Like a what?
Like a marquee?
Yeah, let's call it that. Yeah. I'm not sure we're on the same page, but
so yeah, when I think
the Americans will know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so I'm not thinking like a circus. I'm thinking like you have the big sort of square tents where everyone sits down and there's a stage and
yes, exactly that.
Okay,
like that.
Evangelize.
Yes. I didn't want to specifically use the term evangelize, but yes.
Okay. No worries.
That is exactly what it is. So inside, many of the faiths are represented, not the flames specifically, but the god of trickery and the god of war are both represented here. And Foro Swift seems to be a cleric in some standing with the god of war, whose name, of course, is Victory. And in here, there are a lot of beds and not a lot of patients. There seems to be ongoing rituals to bless holy water happening here and the creation of healing scrolls. But the number of patients being attended to in this much larger tent is very small. And Foro Swift comes over. This man is elven. He's probably about 6'2", very thin and narrow, wearing spectacles and what I can only describe as a pope hat, with robes displaying the symbol of the god of war, Victory, on the front. and white with gold trim, and he says, "Ah, you must be Zintrana, yes?"
Just Zin.
And then he switches to speaking to you in Elvish. Do you speak Elvish?
I do. So I speak Elvish. I understand what he says.
Okay.
And I guess for the audience's sake, when Zintrana replies, she speaks like tourist Elvish.
I was gonna say, you speak Southern Elvish. You're like, "Oh, hey, y'all." What is it in anime? You're from the Southern Island, the one with the Marine base.
Yeah, it's like when tourists try to speak French. It's like, "Oh, merci beaucoup."
Yeah. He smiles but looks slightly pained when you introduce yourself again in Elvish. And he makes several gestures which you have no cultural understanding of, but seem very elven. He's just like, And for Farless's sake, he switches back to common and says, "I thank you for agreeing to join us. While we do not understand yet the purpose of the Dawn Agreement, the forces of Severumen will always stand for, if not your particular god of light and life, we will stand by the concept of life itself on this world."
Sorry, Master Swift, do you have an appellation you prefer? Like, would you like me to call you brother or...
Please, Master Swift was my father. I am Foro.
Foro, okay. Look, I'm still relatively fresh to the Dawn Agreement myself. So speaking only for my personal thing, I'm here to help. So...
Of course.
Yeah, it seems to be... I briefly met with Miss Angle before, and she showed me some of the strange afflictions that have affected some of the men here.
Her understanding of the magical arts is very limited. It is unfortunate, but given her lifespan, not surprising.
I was hoping that treating some of these afflictions may require some research. Are there resources either here in House Esper or elsewhere in Stormwall that I could go to research such magical afflictions? We have brought
several books with us. When we were dispatched from Severumen, we brought some of the greatest healing articles we could. They are, of course, all in Elvish.
I'm pretty passable at reading Elvish.
Of course. We offered them to Miss Angle, but she does not speak the mother tongue.
Well, if at some point I could have some access to those tomes,
he gestures to a small library, which includes a take a book, leave a book stand, and several other, like, the tomes are organized by the Elvish version, so it's not Dewey Decimal. They're organized by the importance the author had on the culture of Severumen. So the most important authors are all towards the front, and the least important authors are towards the back. And of course, almost all the names you see close to you are all Elvish.
Well, I think, is there nothing else that I can help with right now?
If you would like to help make some holy water, or perhaps offer a prayer to help these poor humans through their horrifying times.
Certainly I will. I'm just back on this right. I was thinking, I thought bless was an area effect, but it's not. It's 3 specific targets. So
yes, but it's still a pretty cool spell.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I think the number of targets increases as you grow higher in level, right?
It probably does, yeah. But I mean, bless used to just be everyone in an area in third ed. Yeah.
You want to bless anybody here before you pray?
Yeah, I guess, if I'll just to sort of not show off, but to feel like I'm doing something, I will, commit to getting people to either tell their stories or something and then provide them with a blessing. I don't know whether creating holy water actually requires a spell, but
holy water requires a commitment of your time pouring divine energy into it. I mean, it's like hours of praying over a vial of oil, essentially.
Okay, all right. So yeah, I want to appear like I'm helping, so I'm happy to do these things.
Rather than appear like you're helping, let's roll to see how helping you are with a religion check.
With a religion check, okay.
Now, if you roll like you have been, you will appear to be helping.
There you go. See?
You will actually help.
No, it's like low, high, low, high. I was due for a high. So,
you spend some time with several other priests who are praying concurrently. How can I put this as electrical engineering as possible? You are all acting in parallel to pray to reduce the amount of time it takes for the prayer to complete.
No one likes playing in series.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, right, you could each be praying over your own vial, but it would require a commitment of several days of prayer. But by all praying together, you reduce the amount of time it takes one person, right? You're all acting to boost the primary prayer. Yeah, you hang around with some of the wounded in here. It seems as if the ones in here are those who are actively seeking out some sort of philosophical understanding of what they've done, right? The people in here are people whose injuries appear to be primarily to their own understanding of morality, or indeed to the mind itself. That the violence that they have committed, was it necessary? What did it all mean if in the end it was actually just the work of a demon? If Carcass is to continue, what is to become of the Empire, right? The Empire can't allow an enemy to remain directly adjacent to it, one that struck from the shadows to take from it all of its things. It's people in here who have questions of faith. What was it all for? What does it all mean? And during that, let me ask you, what prayers do you offer to the flame?
So let me quickly explain one thing too. So Zin may look like a healer and she's pretty good at healing, but what she actually is a hairdresser. So when she's looking after all these people, it's just constant questions of everybody. You know how when you go for a haircut and there's an annoying person that wants to ask you how your day was, and what are you doing next, and that's the thing. That's what Zin's like when she talks to people. So once it starts becoming, when they start bringing up questions of faith, she's probably a little bit uncomfortable at first, and is trying to like help people reach their own conclusions rather than trying to inflict her position on something on them as such.
You're Socrating them, right? You're counter asking them questions based on their questions.
Yeah, it's like what do I do? Well, what do you think you should do?
Yeah, James. So Zin is the same as you then, because you also do that. Well, I still want to know what prayers you personally offer, but let me ask you to make an insight check as well to see how well your hairdresser ways go.
Okay, nice.
It's not that you can't do this right. This will determine how well you are at reading people.
I just said I know. I roll a 5. I roll a 5.
I know. You have a basic understanding of people, right? You don't get any brilliant insights about them. You get enough here that you can offer them. I don't want to call it pithy because I think that would underrate it, but you give them some very basic advice that they could probably get from like a word of a day scroll or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know these people yet, so it's very generic.
Your answers are generic. That is the best way to describe it. What are your personal prayers like during this, though? Again, I want to keep circling in on this.
Okay,
how do you communicate with the flame?
So I think that because the plane isn't personified or not anthropomorphized, is it?
Right,
so
it's a flame. It's literally the fire of the sun.
Okay, so I guess for me, or for Zin, it's more about the warmth that life brings. So she's very much about dawns and new beginnings, and everyone has a chance. Even when you think that you've expended all your chances, there's always another position to take. So in terms of her own prayers, it's always about, especially in a situation where a lot of people are injured and have had a bad time up until now, it's all about, praying for new beginnings, for, people to be able to look past the current moment to what the future could hold.
When you are in prayer, this is not the first time you have gained such a vision, but this is probably the most powerful one you've ever experienced. Your communication with the flame is something like attempting, it's just like Taurus French. You do not speak the same language as a god. You can't understand exactly what they're saying. In fact, if you could, it would shatter your mind because you're not a deity. You do your best to make your intention understood and hope that the god will bestow upon you exactly what you ask. The flame sends messages back like this sometimes, but this one is perhaps the most powerful and disturbing. There are no words in it, but you see a goat standing atop a mountain looking out over Stormwall. Then you see a tavern, the Rusty Knocker, the sign says outside. And you don't see a trail of blood, but you can smell blood in your vision, leading you to the Rusty Knocker. You see something that must just be an understanding. So it's like a flashing series of images, as if you were looking at a film reel and just going through it and just like seeing a series of still images and knowing that eventually there is motion through them of medical supplies that are being picked up and moved. So you just see all of the supplies together. Then you see box after box being removed until in the end there is just a series of bandages and dust left at the bottom. And you awaken from this vision.
Probably disconcerted at first. I look around for Farless.
Farless is sleeping next to you. He's just like sitting in a chair. Just...
Yeah, so he's dozed off. Okay.
Yep.
Sergeant?
Yep, he's awake instantly when you say his name. He's just like, yep.
This may feel like an odd question, but do you know of a tavern called the Rusty Knocker?
Oh, yeah, the Rusty Knocker is one of the closest taverns to here. You know, occasionally they let us go out and visit the Rusty Knocker. You know, in groups, of course, with chaperones.
Do you think maybe tomorrow you could take me down there?
Oh, Lady Zintrana, I'm not sure the Rusty Knocker is the kind of place a person of such fine standing as yourself would want to visit for a casual drink. I'm sure we could find you like a nice wine bar or something. A tavern, maybe? A good one?
It's difficult to explain, but the flame just gave me a vision, and the Rusty Knocker was in it.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't see any reason why I couldn't take you. I'll need to get permission from the lieutenant, but yeah. Okay.
Okay, that'll be good. Yeah, I don't yet know what it means, but it was very clear, that name. So
I think you should prepare yourself.
Okay. I've probably done all I can here, so I might head back to my tent.
I'm gonna escort you back to your tent just to make sure nothing wrong happens. He like hops up from the chair.
Yep.
I'll see you in the morning after we get back.
Yeah, and make sure you bring that pan flute along when you have a chance.
Oh, of course. I mean, I can play it at the Rusty Knocker, of course. That's where I normally play, actually.
Oh, well then.
They give me a discount on drinks. Yeah, okay. All right. The final scene is at the top of tiers of agriculture and like hills. We just see a goat standing on top of some rocks, looking at Castle Hesper in the great distance and going, "Bah, bah." And that's it. That's the end of this particular episode. Well, James, why don't you tell us who you are now that we've concluded Chapter 1 of Zintrana?
Yeah, I am Grimdark James, most known for my role in the Grimdark podcast, which is a 40k podcast, which is no longer running right now. Still in the process with my former co-host of putting together a new show, but lockdown has certainly inhibited our ability to get together and plan for that. But you can find the whole back catalogue at grimdarkpodcast.com. Otherwise, I spend a lot of time on Arthur's Discord and on Arthur's channel, so you can find me in some of his past Battletech shows and Cyberpunk shows and Wrath and Glory shows. And I also run Road Trader on Arthur's channel on Saturdays, 8 p.m. Eastern time on Twitch and something on YouTube. And yeah, it's great to be involved in another Arthur show. It's bittersweet in that it will be short, but I'm hoping that if it's popular enough, it will contribute towards the success of a future. I know you talked about the possibility of a spin-off show, so
like a 4-person evening show set in the region of Acas. Yes,
yeah, that's it. So hopefully, if this Doctor Who show is successful, we can go do some Torchwood.
Doctor Who? Wow, listen. I'm American, and I barely understood what you said. Okay,
but do you know what Torchwood?
I know what Torchwood is. It's a spin-off of like they're like an SCP, right? They're like a society.
Yeah, that's right. But it's because Torchwood, because it's an anagram of Doctor Who. So
I just learned that.
Yeah, that's how people worked out it was a spin-off.
Wow. Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for you and me, James. There'll be another episode starting next week. Thank you for joining me, audience, and have a good time zone.